Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Metrics That Matter Summit. This presentation is on how Meta is driving business outcomes through certifications and training. I'm very excited to be joined by my friend Vikas today. I'm going to introduce him in a moment. Some quick housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded, so if you need to jump off at some point, you want to come back and reference it, you can do that. The slides for this webinar are actually underneath the video, so you'll see an area that has attachments, some additional stuff for you there. The Q&A box also, so Vikas will be taking some questions. You can put those questions as we go in the Q&A box underneath the video. And then the last thing I want to note is the platform that we're using defaults to like a certain setting based on your internet speed. So if we look a little bit blurry, there's a gear icon in the bottom corner of your video, and you can update, you can kind of manually override the video quality, and that should solve your problems. But if you have any questions, use that Q&A box. I'm going to be here on the receiving end to answer your questions as we go. And without further ado, I want to introduce you to Vikas Wadhwani. He's the Director of Learning and Certifications at Meta. And Vikas, I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit before we get into our conversation.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Hey, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Vikas Wadhwani. I'm the Director of Learning and Certifications at Meta. I've been here almost 7 years. And my team's charter is to develop training and certification programs for small and medium businesses, marketing professionals, especially those in digital marketing, creators, developers, and community managers. Millions of businesses use our platforms, Facebook and Instagram, to grow their business and use our platforms, Messenger and WhatsApp, to communicate with their customers. And my team's responsibility is to support these businesses and make them successful. Previously, I held various leadership positions at Cisco in their global certifications team. I have an engineering background. I'm very active in credentialing industry associations, and I'm a champion for customer advocacy.
All right. So, Vikas, you've been at Meta for quite a while, back to when we called it Facebook before we changed to Meta. What was the situation when you joined Facebook? So you oversee learning and certifications, but my understanding is there wasn't a certification when you joined. So can you take us back in the time machine? What was the situation when you got on the scene?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So back then, when it was Facebook, there was a training program that Facebook had launched called Facebook Blueprint, and I was brought on board to build out a certification program. So my first order of business was to see what currently existed and figure out what kind of program I wanted to build. And after some quick alignment with our leadership, I decided that I wanted to build a high stakes certification program that was psychometrically sound, legally defensible, that we could stand behind. And we decided to take a job role based approach to build these certifications. Now, naturally, when we have a certification program, we want to give people opportunities to prepare and succeed at those certifications. So, it goes hand in hand with some training opportunities that we should be able to provide. Although using our training is not required for someone to attempt and earn our certifications, because people have different learning styles. Some people like to learn on the job. Some people like to use, third-party providers. But it is still our responsibility to give them enough opportunities to succeed by providing a training program that goes hand in hand with certifications. So since Facebook Blueprint, then now Meta Blueprint, already existed, we still had some gaps in terms of what we wanted to build for our certifications and what kind of trainings we wanted to build that go hand in hand with them. So that was the beginning, and we also recognize that not everyone who gets trained has to get certified. In fact, I've had more than 2 decades of experience in the certification industry, and the train to test ratio is very small. It's in single digits. And we also wanted to establish a North Star for our program. And, I've always been an advocate for customers. So my philosophy is that whether someone is spending, 5 minutes or less watching a video or taking an e-learning course on our platform, or if they are spending several months preparing and getting certified, they need to be able to benefit from the investment of their time. So we established that North Star with the team, decided to create a high stakes program and a training program, a high stakes certification program and a training program that goes hand in hand with that. So those were the early days, and it's been a long journey. We are now Meta, not Facebook, and we have several things that we offer in our portfolio.
That's amazing. So take us along for the journey. What did metrics look like in those early days? So we were just talking with Debbie in our last session about metrics to present to leadership. And it's great if you have dashboards and visualizations, but sometimes, we're in those early stage metrics. So what do those look like for you in the early days?
Yeah, that's a great question, Shannon. And the early days are very critical in terms of defining the metrics, although you may not have enough metrics to show at the time. I guess our first order of business was to be able to provide these, millions of businesses that are coming to our platform, the training and education that they needed, so that they are not always relying on third-party providers to figure out how to build their campaigns on our platform. And although well-intentioned, third-party providers don't always have the latest information on our products. So it was incumbent on us to be able to give them the latest information that we could stand behind, um, and that was also legally defensible. In terms of metrics, I guess very broadly, we categorize our metrics into learning metrics and business metrics. So learning metrics are the ones that are the most straightforward and easy to start measuring from the get-go. And we have three broad categories. One is reach. How many people are we reaching with our training? And we can define reach in one of many different ways, but it's basically how many people are aware, how many people know where to go and access our resources. The second metric would be engagement. And engagement can be defined differently by different folks, but for us it was more around, if someone is aware of our program, are they coming in and completing a course, are they watching a complete video, are they taking a practice test, are they attempting a certification exam? Those would be audiences that we would consider engaged, not just aware of the program. And customer satisfaction. And again, customer satisfaction is, it's a pretty straightforward metric, but it's essentially how are they rating the quality, how are our customers rating the quality of our content based on the time that they have spent with us. And you can measure customer satisfaction in one of many different ways. It could be a very simple thumbs up and a thumbs down, or it could be, give us a rating from like 1 to 5 stars, or it could be a full blown survey. But those were the early state like learning metrics that we started tracking and we still track to date. And they give us a picture into how many people are coming to the platform, how many are completing courses, and what are they saying about our content. And you can get a lot of actionable feedback from like very simple customer satisfaction metrics and see if you're going in the right direction or not. So those were like the early day metrics. The business metrics were something that we defined, but not something that we started tracking until later. And I'm happy to talk about that. But yeah, early days is always learning outcomes, learning metrics.
Which is, I know Debbie had talked about that as well. And then I mentioned in the attachments under the video, we have some resources for you, not just the slides, but also a guide that talks about these kind of earlier stage metrics versus later metrics. And so I love that you're here to kind of bring us on the journey, because a lot of people are in that stage where they're starting up a program or their program is relatively new. All they're really able to measure is those learning or program level metrics. So I know we're going to talk about the business metrics in a minute, but what did it look like for you to tell that story to your leadership team of how education was moving the needle or making an impact before you were able to prove ROI?
Yeah, absolutely. So, ROI comes later, but it should not be an afterthought. It should be a part of the design of the program and the design of the content. So, initially, the story that we had to tell the business was that, hey, here's the program that we intend to create, and as a part of that, these are the metrics that we plan to drive. So, defining those metrics upfront and being intentional about it was something that we did from the get-go. So, when you're going from 0 to 1, anything you build is better than not having anything at all. But is it headed in the right direction? Is it doing the right things? Is it moving the needle in the right manner? Is something that you need to define upfront, and the measurement will come later. But you cannot think about what to measure after the fact. It has to be intentional. It has to be defined upfront. And again, the premise was very simple. We have millions of businesses. We have a lot of developers, community managers who are using our platform. How do we give them the right education so that they can feel supported without having to figure it out on their own or depend on third parties who may have just learned it on their own. So the premise to build the program was straightforward. The business metrics we defined upfront, intentionally, and when we had sufficient volume to be like statistically significant, we started measuring those business outcomes.
I appreciate you walking us through that. So we're beginning with the end in mind, right? We're starting with those business outcomes, but in the beginning, we're only able to measure maybe the learning outcomes, but show how we're moving toward those business outcomes. So talk to us about, in the early days, you mentioned reach, engagement, and customer satisfaction. What are you looking at now? What are some of those business outcomes that your team is driving toward?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I just want to make sure I qualify. The business outcomes were already defined, and we've started measuring them a little bit later in the process when we had enough, sufficient volume and enough statistical signal. But every program needs to define the business outcomes that make sense to them, that are relevant to them. In our case, what we anchored on was product adoption, and spend quality from our customers, and churn reduction. And I can spend a little bit of time talking about each one of them. But what I really wanted to anchor on during our content design process, whether it was a piece of training content or if it was a certification, was what action do we intend our customers to take after they go through an e-learning or go through an instructor-led training, a webinar, or perhaps get certified. It wasn't so much about what are they going to learn from it, because that's pretty obvious. When you're like creating a learning program, the intention is to teach someone how to do something. But what we really wanted to start tracking was what action do we expect that customer to take once they go through the training. And product adoption is our main metric that we track, because when we talk about products, they could be products or they could be features within a product. If we have a new feature that we've launched and that we think will benefit a certain type of customer, the intention of the learning content is to get that customer to be able to adopt that product or feature. um, and whether or not they do that within a certain defined time frame after they complete the training or complete the certification, is how we measure whether the product is being adopted directly as a result of that training or not. The second metric that we track is spend quality. And again, this may not be relevant to all programs, but especially for us, for businesses that are using our platforms to advertise and reach their customers, we wanted to make sure that the campaigns that they are building and the money that they are spending on our platform is giving them the results that they intend to drive. And with regards to that, we have an internal metric, and it's loosely defined as spend quality. We want to make sure that they're getting optimal results from the campaigns that they run, and that's something that we track internally. So if a customer is like building a campaign and they're getting really good results, and they have used our training, then that would be considered a success. If their campaigns are not as optimal as they could be, based on their business goals, then we make sure that we are directing them to the trainings so that they can take advantage of that and go back and rebuild their campaigns or fix their campaigns for the future. The third business outcome that we track is churn reduction. Again, this could mean different things for different programs and different businesses. But for us, churn reduction is mostly around, if someone is trying to use our platform, are they benefiting from the content that we have put in front of them, and are they able to do the thing that they intend to do? Um, if they are coming back to the training content, is it because they want to learn more, or was it not clear the first time? And if they are not coming back to the training content, was it because it was pretty straightforward and we were able to successfully help them mitigate the challenge that they had at that point in time? And how many support cases are we getting from these customers who are getting trained, right? So ideally, you want to see fewer support cases from customers who are trained than the ones who are not, right? So that also results in cost savings, and you have fewer people that need to actually spend time with your customers in terms of supporting them and hand holding them. Plus, we also believe that it's better for the customers to learn how to do the thing so that they are not overly reliant on customer support teams, because it's better to teach someone how to fish than to just serve them a platter of fish. So that's what we intend to achieve with churn reduction, and those are the three metrics that we defined upfront but started measuring them a little bit later after the program was launched.
Okay. So during our prep conversations, you talked about your partnership with Meta's data team, and how, when it comes to measuring the success, the impact of your program, that you're looking at what are those business outcomes that we establish up front? What did we intend to do? Right. So I think you use this analogy of like we don't want to expect oranges from an apple tree, right? We want to expect apples from an apple tree. So can you talk to us a little bit about that partnership, how you work with your data team to actually prove these outcomes? So I know one of the questions that has come up a lot today is the whole, like, how do you actually prove that learning is moving the needle?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we are very fortunate to have data scientists that work at Meta who we partner with, and educate them on the kind of programs we've built and the types of business outcomes we intend to drive. It was also important for me personally and also for my team to not grade our own homework, right? So uh, by partnering with these data scientists, if you have the opportunity, I would say everyone should try and do this if they can. I know that it's not a luxury that every program can afford, or have the kind of talent internally to be able to do this. But if possible, have someone else actually grade your homework so you can truly know how you're doing as a program. And when we partnered with our data science teams, our responsibility was to educate them about the different programs that we had built, and also give them the information about when we designed these programs, what was the business outcome that we intended to drive from them, from every piece of content, from every instructor-led training, from every certification. And it's then up to the data scientists to be able to look at the data from the program, both in terms of how these customers are using our platform, and also take the learning data from folks who have gone through training and certifications, to kind of match and see, are we able to drive those business outcomes that we originally intended to or not. um, and the intention of doing this is twofold, right? One is to measure the business outcomes. It's to measure the metrics, and kind of like see where do we stand. Have we done the right thing? Have we moved the needle? That part is obviously exciting because everyone wants to see great business outcomes from their program. But personally, for me, what's more exciting is the latter part, which is, what is it that we haven't done? What could we improve, and how can we feed that back into our design process, so that when we are updating this content or evolving our portfolio with new offerings, or coming up with different modalities for training, what could we be doing better, so that we are continuously learning from the data and from the program. So it's a twofold process. And like I had mentioned to you, right, you cannot expect oranges from an apple tree or the other way around. um, you cannot leave it up to the data scientists to be able to like figure out how the program is doing. You need to tell them upfront, hey, with this program, I wanted to drive product adoption, and here are the products that I intended to drive. um, or with a different program, if the intention was to increase the spend quality, um, why did we think it was going to improve the spend quality? Now, the data scientists don't need to get into the nitty gritty of everything that we built in the program, but they need to understand the design. They need to understand the intent. And then they can work their magic and do their math and run their models and tell us, how we did, and also give us, insights into how we could improve the program and make it better going forward. So it's a continuous iteration. It's a continuous process.
I love that. Not grading your own homework, because sometimes I think, and this is like, we just see this in research and reports in general, is that we can read into things or things that aren't actually there just because we want to see them, or we could maybe, connect some dots that weren't actually connected. I wanted to actually talk about how to work with a data team. So you're right, like not everybody has a data team, but if you do have one and you can get access to someone, I'll throw this out to people, like make friends with people who are not on your team. I've totally been able to get some data analysis done by people because we did a Spartan race together. I just find ways to connect with people who are not in my department, and you build some bridges. But if you do have someone that you can lean on, it's not always maybe super straightforward. I think it would be nice I think sometimes you get a request form and it's like, this is what I want, and we forget that it's a partnership with our data analysis team, that we need to help them. Like you're saying, we need to give them the context, the intent, what were we trying to drive? We need to help them to understand, because math is what math is, but we have to put some context around that. So can you talk to us a little bit about tips, best practices? What should we be thinking about when we're partnering with our data teams to kind of prove out the value of our programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think if a program is new and hasn't had, a lot of measurement around it, I guess the first thing that teams should consider doing is to establish some baseline metrics, right? And um, baseline metrics are not something that you can just come up with. You need to observe what you observe from the data, from the first iteration of the measurement, and establish that as your baseline. I guess learning metrics are a little bit easier to use as an example over here. So when you're launching a new piece of learning content, in the first month, how many visitors did you have to that content, right? Was it 1,000 people or was it 100,000 people? And that can serve as your baseline in terms of, here's the number of people we reached. And then beyond that, when you continuously keep measuring your program, you can see like, how are you doing compared to the baseline? And is your program headed in the right direction in terms of getting in front of the right people and the right number of people? So that's a conversation that we had with our data science teams. And it's difficult to gauge how a program is doing when you're having that first iteration of the measurement, right? You can have a hypothesis about, here's what we intend to drive, but you could be completely off the mark, or you could be close to where you should be. And what we did was we established the baseline in the first iteration of the measurement, and we said, in whatever time period we chose, what did we observe from the data? And once we had that as the baseline, our charter was to then continue to measure and figure out how we are doing compared to the baseline. That's something that has worked really well for us. Instead of playing the guessing game and saying, here's how many people we are going to reach. Like, how do you know that's good enough, right? Like, are you shooting too high, or are you shooting too low, or just right? It's impossible to know that. So I would suggest that that would be the first thing that programs consider doing. And then beyond that, it's a continuous partnership with the data science teams to say, hey, here's what we learned from the previous iteration. These are the actions we have taken, and can you tell us how we are doing now? And defining those time periods that make sense for your business.
I like that you mentioned establishing a baseline, because I do think sometimes we forget to do that we need baseline metrics so that when we set a goal to increase, product adoption by this percentage, or increase revenue, or, spend quality, that we have a baseline, and we also have that hypothesis like you're talking about. And I know earlier Dave kind of introduced us to a framework for tying education goals to business outcomes. And I loved, he had this third column, as measured by, like, how will we believe that this education initiative is tied to these business goals, and here's how we're going to measure that along the way. So we're kind of establishing that, to your point, up front. Okay, so we've got a bunch. We're going to do some Q&A. So again, like, the Q&A is under here. There's a few questions already, but if you want to, I know sometimes it takes a minute to type, throw some questions in the questions box. But while you're here, Vikas, you have had this opportunity to grow this program for the last several years, like from scratch at a very large, very public, very well-known company. And I know that has probably come with like challenges, iterations of things. What have you learned that the rest of us can kind of take and apply to our own work, our own worlds?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mentioned at the beginning of this call during my introduction that I'm a huge, advocate for customers. And, of course, every business wants to build a program that benefits them. But if the intention is to benefit the customer who's spending time, investing their time and energy and sometimes even money getting trained, your North Star should always be making sure that your customers can succeed, right? And I guess the big learnings that I've had is, one is, be very intentional about why you're creating a piece of content. There are no bragging rights about like having a massive library of learning courses or like certifications, if they don't really mean anything, right? I mean, numbers do mean something, but I would say be intentional about why a piece of content is being built. What does it intend to do for the customer, and document that as a part of your content design process. Um, the second thing is that, and these are in no particular order, but I would say the second thing is that the ultimate beneficiary of your content or your program must always be your end customer. If they truly benefit from your content, then the business outcomes that you intend to drive for your program or for your organization, they will automatically follow, right? There's no way you can build something that benefits your organization without keeping the end customer in mind. A training program, for customers or partners or even for employees, it must ultimately benefit them. And even with our certification program, when we launched it, we did some measurement. We wanted to ensure that we are driving like positive career outcomes for people who are earning a credential, and we were very intentional about what does that positive career outcome mean. It could have meant getting a new job, getting a promotion, getting a pay raise. It had to be very specific about the outcome we wanted to drive, from it. So make sure that you're trying to get your customers to succeed first, and your business metrics will automatically follow. And you win only when your customers win. So invest in their success. If they succeed, you will definitely succeed. This can only be a win-win situation.
That is something I love about your approach, is that it is, I think we all have a heart, a passion for helping other people. And we want to see them win, right? And sometimes I think people think it's there's business goals or you help your customers win, but it's actually, they're the same thing. When your customers win, right? So thinking about that metric as spend quality, like, that metric is beneficial to Meta, and that metric is beneficial to the person who's maybe doing advertising on your platform. So there's a win-win, right? And finding those areas where both parties win. How do we help everybody to win?
Exactly.
Okay. Awesome. Well, we have some questions coming in. The first one, I think, is just a high five to you and your team. Someone said the Blueprint supported Meta certified community manager program learning group is invaluable to becoming a Meta certified community manager. So I wish I had this when I managed Facebook communities like 10, 12 years ago. All right, we have a question. Could you elaborate? So you mentioned earlier about collecting data and then getting to the point where it's statistically significant to then do analysis and prove that we're driving the outcomes that we intended to. What are the indicators of that being statistically relevant? How do we know we've reached that threshold where we can now do a proper analysis?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, I guess the answer is the straightforward answer is it depends. It depends upon the size of the program, the size of your audience. Just to give you an example, the small businesses that come to our platform to consume our learning content, they come in the millions because we do have millions of businesses that are using our platform. The digital marketers who are coming to advance their career and earn a certification, they are in the tens of hundreds of thousands, right? So what is statistically significant from a small business perspective, from a small business owner who's coming to consume a piece of learning content, is very different from what is statistically significant for someone who wants a career in digital marketing or in community management. I guess one way to define statistically significant is that once you establish your baseline metrics and you partner with your data science teams, work with them to identify what they think would give them enough of a signal to say that you're driving, to be able to measure the business outcomes that you intend to measure. And again, that answer is going to vary based on program, the audience size, the intent, the reach, and the time frame. So I wish I could give a number, but there isn't one because even we have different metrics that we define depending on our audiences.
I think that's just, it depends. We all need a t-shirt, right? Because that's the answer to almost every question, right? Of, it depends. What are your goals? Who's your audience? What matters most? Or in your case, there's different size audiences. So makes sense. Okay. Another question. A lot of people don't see value in achieving certification as that's simply validation to display to others versus knowledge used on the job. So I think it looks like maybe we're talking about this perception that people earn certifications to put it on a resume, put it on their LinkedIn profile. How does this get normalized while tying people certification and individuals trained as one a bigger signal of skill than the other? So maybe how are we measuring that the certification is building competency, skill sets, rather than just a thing on the wall?
Yeah, I think this is a great question, and I can spend a lot of time on it. But I guess the short answer is that every program needs to define upfront the intention of the certifications that they've built, right? And not all digital badges come equal. Some are just a pat on the back and bragging rights to people, while others are, they are very meaningful in terms of the company standing behind someone that they have certified and are able to make a claim that this person is going to be able to do X, Y, and Z in their job. Of course, you cannot make claims about like everything about a person, but if it's a high stakes certification program like the ones that we've built, we really stand behind the people who are getting certified because of the way the program has been designed and the way it's delivered and administered, and the way people need to stay on top of keeping that credential current, because there's like recertification policies in place. So yes, there are programs out there that have a lot of certifications that they offer, and it might not be clear what they actually mean. But if as a program owner you've defined very clearly why you want to create a program and what you want to intend to drive with it, it could really have a meaningful impact, both for the people who are getting certified as well as for their employers who are hiring them, knowing that these people are certified, and for the customers that these people are serving. So yes, it's not all programs are created equal, but having a certification can have a lot of meaning if it's done right, if it's administered correctly, and if it's legally defensible and psychometrically sound, which is what our program is.
It makes me think of the whole like big C, little c certification debate of there are those high stakes, legally defensible. There's proctored certifications, right? So and that might be something for the person who asked the question to think about, like, how do you, right? Because you can get a certificate, you can do something online that's an open book questionnaire and get a certificate, and but how do you show like the competencies that this person has gained? Is there a way that you can showcase that credential and, like we stand behind this person, or what it took to get that certification, so that it means more, right? Like I know like a blueprint certification, or I'm even thinking like Trailhead Salesforce admin certifications, right? Like you can't phone that one in. You got to actually know what you're doing. So maybe there's an opportunity in how we present the certification to show, what this person has learned or what they've gone through, right, to get to that. Okay, Harold has a question. Many companies may not understand the value of being certified and how it's tied to their ROI. What are a few examples of how we can show that?
So, I guess again it goes back to the intent of the program and the intent of the audience that are coming to consume the program, right? Um, we have small businesses, we have small business owners who are wearing multiple hats, trying to grow their business and doing like digital marketing as a part of like one of the many things that they manage. Those people should not be getting certified. They should be just coming in and consuming a piece of learning content that helps them build their campaign, or ensure that they're like able to reach the right customers at the right time, or showcase their product and like be on their way, right? That's what they should be doing. But we also have people who are saying, hey, I want to actually have a career in this. I want to be a consultant to businesses. I want to be able to run their campaigns. I want to help them grow their campaigns. Certifications are right for those types of individuals. um, it's also incumbent on a program to be able to speak to what do their certifications actually mean in the marketplace. Like when you see someone with a meta certified like media buying professional badge on their resume, what does that actually mean? And because digital credentials are super popular these days, most of the badges are digital badges. You have an opportunity in real time to be able to share that information about what does it actually mean when someone clicks on that badge and validates that this person has a certification, it's legit, it's still active and relevant, that it hasn't lapsed. And that's where you can provide them metadata to share what does that certification mean to a person who may not like quite understand what does being certified actually mean. So it's again incumbent on the program to be able to do that, and we do that quite intentionally. If someone's certification has lapsed, it will show as lapsed when you click on their badge, and at that point, the person who is reviewing it needs to understand that okay, this person hasn't stayed current, um, compared to someone who has stayed current, with their certification when they earned it. So I guess those are some of the opportunities. Of course, you can have like a lot of marketing collateral that you can put out there, but you don't expect people to come and consume all of the content that you have on your website. Maybe some people who are like hiring managers who want to like deeply understand what does this mean, they might want to do it. But if I'm a small business owner and I want to hire someone to help me with my digital campaigns, it's easier for me to just find someone who is meta certified, and I can click on their badge and say, okay, this person probably knows what they are doing because Meta has certified them, and then they can hire them as a consultant, or like bring them on as a freelancer for a project. So there are multiple opportunities for programs to communicate what that certification means and what the value is, and there isn't like a one size fits all for all programs.
All right. Christian asked if you can answer this, and it's okay if the answer is no. How did your data scientists and team prove customer support deflection tied to customers who completed a certification? Can we talk at a high level of like, what does it look like to prove that out?
So I cannot talk about this in quantified terms, obviously, but there's a way to measure how your customers are doing if they are certified compared to the ones who are not certified, assuming that they are in similar job roles at similar sized companies, and have the same level of support available to them. So there has to be parity between the audiences that you're comparing, the ones who are certified compared to the ones who are not certified. If you take that sort of an approach, then there is a way to measure how much support these people are actually seeking. And every program again does things differently. If you track, like, support tickets, the type of tickets, the types of escalations that happen when a customer reaches out to a company to get support, you can track that over time. And that can tell you a story about whether the program is headed in the right direction or not. So again, I'm talking about it in very general terms, but there's definitely a way to do it.
That's interesting that you brought up parity, because I think we often think certified versus uncertified. Let's like look at the data, and you're bringing this additional level of, are these two like people kind of equal in terms of the level of support, their job title, level, role, things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question. How has training and certification approach for small businesses gotten updated or modified with the increasing usage of AI tools? What was important a few months ago? Maybe I'll reword this question a little bit of like, social media changes a lot. Like as someone who used to manage social media, manage Facebook groups, things are constantly changing. So you're having to keep your certification up to date. And now we have this added element of AI. How do you approach like keeping all of that content updated and adapting to in an industry that like is changing in real time?
Great question. And I was wondering what took so long for someone to ask a question about AI, because there's no conversation that you can have these days without AI being in the picture. I guess the approach that we've always taken from the get-go is that we have two ways we update our content, reactively and proactively. Our proactive updates, happen on a regular, calendar basis. We define how frequently we are going to update our learning and certification content, and we stick to that calendar in terms of our proactive updates. Now, reactive updates are, when things change. To your point, technology changes quite rapidly. Our products are evolving constantly, and we do the reactive updates on an as-needed basis, and on an as-needed basis, and as many times as we need to, so that we are, staying on top of our content. Especially because we have a high-stakes certification program, it is really important for us to keep things current, and they have to be congruent and accurate in terms of what we offer. With AI, what has happened is that the pace of change has accelerated. So our philosophy in terms of how we update our content hasn't changed, but perhaps the frequency with which we need to make those updates has picked up more than what it used to be. Now, I guess that's going to be the new normal for a little while, until the products reach a point where we can leave them that way for a little bit. But we don't expect that to stagnate, because things constantly change, things will change. And as a program, you need to stay very close to products and product updates, so that you can reflect that in your training and certification program. So I hope that answered the question. But yes, AI is impacting everything. um, I don't think there's any entity, program, individual that hasn't been uh, influenced or impacted by the advancements that we've seen in AI in the last several months.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm glad we got that AI question in, because it is top of mind for a lot of people. In that question in general of just how do we keep our content up to date? And it sounds like you're balancing kind of a proactive approach, also reactive, which I like that. Like having something on the calendar to go and check and make sure that we're making updates. I think that's all of our questions for now. Vikas, thank you so much for joining us. I know you've been doing a lot of travel, joining us from the Austin office today. But I appreciate you coming and kind of sharing your experience. I know I've taken a lot of notes. And thank you, everybody who joined us in real time. We have one more session left in the Metrics That Matter Summit. Lisa from Amplitude is going to be talking about measuring education's impact on product adoption. So if you want to get into like instrumentation and how do we instrument our product and our academy and like tie the data together, Lisa's going to be talking about that. So I put the link to that underneath this video, so you can click that. Also want to encourage you to, underneath this video, you can rate this session. You can give us some feedback. Tell us what you liked. Tell us things that you want to hear about. We read every comment that you send. So thank you for being here, and we wish you all a great rest of your day. Bye for
Thank
now.
you so much, Shannon. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.